Hi there, welcome to Little Sparrow Cottage. I'm Linda and today we're going to do some easy houseplant propagation. So we're out in the greenhouse today. I'm going to show you first how to take a cutting from a green pothos or devil's ivy. Now the thing that's important is to cut below the node. Nodes are what little points that stick out. You can probably see here above where the leaves are coming out. Now that's where the roots will come out when you put the cutting in water. So I'm just taking a piece and we'll go along and cut just like 1/2 inch either side of the node, like that. So going along to the next one, you'll cut another 1/2 inch to the side of that. And all these will become small rooted cuttings that you can put into your soil to create a new plant. You can also take larger cuttings, and when you do this, you'll cut below the node about 1/2 inch and you'll leave the top intact, maybe removing a few of the lower leaves so they don't float in the water. Pothos are one of the easiest plants to propagate. Here we're looking at a syngonium. The syngoniums are a little bit different. They have a swelling and the same sort of little spiky bits that come out from the side of it. But usually these come up from where the dirt is in the syngonium plants, not all along where the leaves are. So I'll show you on this one. I'm not actually going to cut it, but I'll show you where I would cut if I was going to take a cutting from this plant. And you can see where the leaves and the node is down there. So you'd cut below there where the scissors are, and then you'd pop that whole lot into water, and it's got 3 shoots coming out. So when you have a syngonium that you want to propagate, you need to look for these coming out just above the soil line and cut below the node on those. Now just to show you some more examples, here's a neon pothos. If I wanted to keep all the leaves that are on the end of this plant to make a bigger plant sooner, I would go up to where it's a little bit bare there, where you can see, and there is a leaf coming out, so I would chop that leaf once I cut, but I would cut just below the node on that section, and then I would have that whole plant with a few bottom leaves removed sitting in water for 3 or 4 weeks till it got some roots, and then you could replant the whole top of that. And looking at this heart leaf lemon lime philodendron, I'm just going to show you the nodes on this. There's one. So you would cut below that node. There's nodes everywhere. Once you begin to recognize them, it's quite easy. There's another one. It's got a dried little covering on there. You could snip under that one. Another neon pothos I've got here on the window. You can sort of tell the best place to cut normally, depending on how much foliage you want to put in your plant immediately. You can do single leaf cuttings or you can do larger cuttings, where I would cut under there if I wanted a larger cutting with several leaves. Here's a Cebu Blue. Now this is growing up on the shelf up there, so it trails down, but it's quite sparse, so there's a lot of places in between that I could cut and reroot this plant to make it larger, to make it more lush, more full. There's a cutting that I've taken before. You can see how it's regrown. I don't know. Here's another neon pothos, and if I wanted to take that whole section, I would go up there to that main node and I would cut below the node there, or you could go along and cut single leaf cuttings either side of the node. There's one, so you would just cut under there and the other side. Also cut there and cut there, and you'd have 3 single leaf cuttings. Back out in the greenhouse, I've got a heartleaf philodendron, just a green. So for a small cutting, there's a node. I would cut below the node there. Then I'll just show you a bit closer. So there's your cutting, and you would cut off that lower leaf so it doesn't sit in the water and rot. Just give it a little snip. And there is your single cutting. And there's a little group of cuttings I've got for today. Some syngonium, some pothos, and the heartleaf philodendron. And I'm just going to show you how I just pop them in some water. Now some people change their water once a week, some people leave it. I sort of, if I remember, I change it, or if it's looking a bit mucky, I'll give it a change. Otherwise I don't really worry about it. So that's the bottom of the syngonium. So you can see how the nodes are a little bit different on different plants. A lot of the vining plants are similar to the pothos and the philodendron, with nodes going all along. And there are some others that have just a main node that all the shoots come out from. I'm just showing you the individual cuttings, and that's where the roots will come out at the bottom of those, that pointy bit there. So you just want to make sure that your cuttings are in some nice clean water, and they're in a vessel or a jar that's not too deep for the cutting, so that the leaves don't sit in the water. I have many propagation jars. I have small ones, you can see to the side there, for tiny cuttings. I use a bigger mason jar or bigger glasses, and I've got a little vase that I'm using today for these small cuttings. So you just pop them in the water, making sure that the nodes are covered, no leaves are sitting in the water as much as possible. And then it's just a matter of waiting until the roots show up, until you think they're long enough. And usually some plants are faster than others. Pothos only takes a couple of weeks. Other plants may take up to 6 or 8 weeks. But these ones are pretty fast, the ones that I've got in here, which is the philodendron, the pothos and the syngonium. So they'll probably only take 2 or 3 weeks to grow some roots. It's good to have a jar that you can see the roots, not using black or like really dark jars, because then you have to keep pulling them out, which disturbs the roots. So it's best to go with something that you can see through. Just pop them somewhere. Doesn't really matter. They don't need a lot of light, so anywhere low light is okay. And here I've got some small lemon lime heartleaf philodendron cuttings and a neon pothos next to that. So we're going to pot up both of those today. And at the side I've also got cuttings from my Monstera Laniata variegata. I think I've got 2, 3 propagation jars of these cuttings. So I'll show you how to pot up that one as well. Here's a small pot of some cuttings that I potted up about a month ago. I think there's about 3 cuttings in there, and the past month they've been growing really well. Now I bought a little selection. I like to use the tiny terracotta pots for very small cuttings, then the small see-through pots for medium cuttings, and the large see-through pots for large cuttings. And these are good because you can see the root growth in them, and you usually put them in a cover pot anyway. This is the aeroid mix that we're going to be using. I sort of cheat a little bit. I just buy orchid mix and then I add some perlite. So it's a very good mix. Instead of, if you don't have the resources to buy each individual item to put in your mix, you can just cheat and buy an orchid mix and add a bit of perlite. And you want to wet it a little bit so it's damp but not soaking wet. So just add a little bit of moisture. You also do not have to use the mix that I'm using. You can use any mix. Normal soil, maybe add a little bit of perlite. It's up to you. But this is what I find my plants grow best in. And we're going to use the large see-through pot. I think it's a 14mm. Fill it up about 1/3. And we're going to start off doing the Monstera Laniata. Just going to show you the individual cuttings. I've been here about probably 6-7 weeks. I've had these in water. A couple of them have not grown roots, but majority of them have. You can see the roots there. So just pull out your cuttings, the ones that are rooted, set them up on your table. I've just used a glass for those ones there, and they've grown really well. See the roots there. That one's got really good roots. Now the ones growing in the glass have actually grown the longest roots. So you don't even need any fancy propagation jars. You can just use a normal glass, wine glass. Can be anything really. Just get something that's made of glass and that's see-through and that can hold water. So we're just going to start placing the cuttings into the soil. You just sort of put them around where you think you might want them, how they'll sit when they're filled up with dirt in the pot. So angle your leaves towards the outside. And once you finish this, you can have a look and see if it looks okay. You can change it. But I try to fit ones all around the side, a couple in the middle, and I position them so that the leaves are pointing outwards so it doesn't grow towards the middle. But if you do, don't worry, because the plant will eventually realign itself for where the light source is and start growing that direction. It just does make it easier if you give it a little bit of a hand when you're planting. Now I've also got this one over here. And you want to fill your pot up as much as you can. You don't want it to look sparse with gaps, but I've put quite a few smaller cuttings in smaller pots and they've grown really well. It depends on what look you're going for and how long you're prepared to wait for the growth. This plant, I wanted to have it looking fairly lush straight away, so I'm putting all my cuttings into the one pot. Some of the leaves have some damage, some yellowing. Don't worry about that, because what you're doing when you do this is just establishing a root system for that plant. You might end up losing a lot of the foliage, but once the root system develops and it pushes out new growth, you can just cut off the damaged leaves. It's just sort of to help the plant get the root system established. So you just keep going with your cuttings, placing them where you think they'd look good, and filling it up enough so that if you're actually looking to start off with a lusher plant, you've got enough cuttings in there. I don't do this for every plant. Some I just put a few in because I know that they're going to grow. Just depends what you're looking for. Make sure all the node cuttings are touching the soil. And so once you've got all your cuttings in, just check that everything's in the position that you want it to be in. If it is, then we're going to just backfill it with some soil. Easiest way is to do it in the container, not to make a mess. Sorry about the plant on the left. I didn't realize when I was filming that was in the way, but you can still see pretty well. So we're just going to cover all those roots in the bottom and bring it up to the level at the top, shaking it and tapping it a little bit as you go to get any air pockets out. You don't need to push it down really firm to compact it, just do it quite loosely and give it a tap and a shake. Also get some dirt between the side and the stem so that it's not leaning on the side of the pot, so it will grow up better. So I'm going around the sides now, making sure there's dirt in between the stem and the pot. Then you want to take your pot over once you've finished and rinse off the leaves and let the water run through the entire pot to give it a good soaking. Just very gentle water. And the good thing about the see-through pots is you can see that the water has gone through, where the water level is up to. And I use these pots with every plant now. I never used to, but now I do, because you can get them very cheap from Bunnings. They're only a couple of dollars, and you can always see the root growth, the moisture level, any problems, anything that's root bound or got root rot. They just they make a lot of sense to use these if you're also using alternative cover pots, which I do with all my plants. I put them in this plastic nursery pot, and then I put them inside a ceramic pot or a basket or whatever you decorate with. So just sorting out some of the leaves. Got some new growth there. A couple of leaves. So it's not looking the best now. It will settle down and sort itself out, and it will get new growth, but it doesn't look too bad for a free plant that I've made by cutting up one of my other plants. Just leave it on the sink and let the extra water drain off. For now I'm going to use this small plastic pole, just so it's got a little bit of support while it's growing. And then later on I will probably change to a moss pole as it gets settled in and the roots have grown, established, because a plant like this, the Monstera, likes to trail. But it just depends on what you're looking for. You can also have it as just a plant in a pot without a pole or without a trellis, or have it hanging over. Just depends what you like, or how big you want the leaves to grow. Poles and will make your plant mature more as far as size of leaves. If you want it to stay smaller, then I wouldn't give your plant a pole. But that's pretty good. As I said, some of those yellowing leaves, they will be chopped off once the plant grows new leaves. But it doesn't look too bad. There's the finished product. There's a couple others that I'm going to do. Bit of a sneak preview. Some smaller ones. So yeah, that's what some of your free plants can look like if you water propagate. So here's a small heartleaf lemon lime philodendron. I took a few cuttings of. It's only very small, so I'm going to use one of the small clear pots for this one. It's got a really long root system. I think I've had this in water a couple of months. So we're just going to put some soil in there. You just want enough soil for placement. Usually 1/3 to half, depending on the length and the size of your cuttings. Make sure you get all the roots down there in the dirt. You don't want them coming out. And just press them down really lightly. And that's what it looks like from the top. And I just backfill the pot, making sure to get a little bit of soil between the side of the pot and the stems. Now this particular philodendron either climbs or it will trail, so I'm putting this one in a pot so that it will trail down. I'm not wanting to grow it upward, so that's why I've put the two cuttings to one side of the pot. So I'll put those towards the light source so that they'll grow down on that side. And you can have a look from the top. Don't have to go all the way to the edge. And do the same thing, take it over and give it a good water so that water runs through the pot. Get any dirt off your leaves and then let it drain for a little while. And I'm just going to pop it in a little outer pot so you see what it looks like. And you have a cute little free plant made from your mother plant. Next we're going to do the neon pothos. One of my favorite plants, very easy growing, very easy to propagate. Doesn't need a lot of care and it always looks really great. The neons do tend to need a little bit more light than just the green pothos, but they get enough light just from my kitchen, so it doesn't have to be bright light, just some indirect light. Just sort through your cuttings. I usually take the biggest ones first and then place the smaller ones around those. This makes it easier. So just repeating the same procedure as with the last one, putting them in a placement and have the leaves facing outwards. Maybe pop a couple towards the middle. This one has a few more leaves on it. You can see on top there, looks pretty good. So we're just gonna backfill it with some soil. Remember to tap and shake it as you go and get some dirt between the edge and the outer stems. Now the neon pothos can make any room look better. It's just a really beautiful, stunning plant, very easy to come by, quite cheap, but it's one of my favorite plants ever. As you can see, I've got one on my kitchen counter there that lives there in that little bee container. and everyone always comments on it. Yeah, that's pretty much done. Give it a good rinse. And there again we have another free plant, new plant, made from your altar. Just popped it in the cover pot, so give you an idea what it looked like. And it looks pretty good to me. Looks like a plant that you'd buy from the nursery. Juvenile plant. It's got plenty of growth points, so it will grow big and thick and looks beautiful.